So the next one is the political argument for the existence of God. So I'm interested about how this is going to go. So
I'm not going to get into any political issue. Actually, there's a really funny story behind this one. I was in high school. I had like this philosophy course, and it was really self-directed. I could just I had to write an essay broadly on some topic, and besides that, I could just choose whatever I wanted to write about. And I was really into like metaphysics and Molinism. I was really on a kick back then for all these fun things. So that was like what all my papers were writing about. Like free will, I'm just going to talk about Molinism. Oh, morality, I'm just going to talk about Molinism. It's just going on talking about Molinism. And then my teacher's like, well, okay, you got to do one essay on the philosophy of politics. I'm like, but I want to do Molinism. It's like, no, it's got to be on politics. But I want to do Molinism.
You're forced. You have no choice.
Yeah, it's like, I don't write the rubric. You got to do on Molinism. Like, fine. Okay, how do I make a political essay on Molinism? So what I did was I decided to write on what political structures would work best if Molinism was true. That's what I decided to write about. And what I realized like a year later is that the political structures that would work best given Molinism are all the political structures which actually exist. So like we could think of like a political spectrum from like totalitarianism to like pure democracy. Totalitarianism, one person decides everything, to a pure democracy where it's like you have everybody vote on issues.
Yeah.
And we'll say that, like, roughly speaking, they're equally expected without more background knowledge. So now we're going to just a priori consider what kind of where God would prefer on the political spectrum if Molinism was true. So we're going to consider a case where you have a society, and we're just going to limit on a couple choices. They are all going to vote on policy A, and they're all going to decide who to marry. So of the feasible, I'm assuming you know about Molinism in this one, just for sake of brevity.
I think, and if you don't know what Molinism is, I encourage you to pause it and check it out. So you're good.
Okay, so there will be, so we have all the feasible worlds that are open to God. And a lot of them, people will choose the right person to marry, and a lot of them, people will vote on the right political issues. But there will be fewer worlds where people vote on the correct political issue and marry the correct person. However, God can actually get around this if he gives one person all the political power. That one person just is going to completely decide whether or not they're going to vote for policy A, and everybody else is going to vote on, or is just going to decide who to marry. If that's the case, then God doesn't have to worry about getting individuals to make the correct policy choice and marry the correct person. They could all have completely diluted political views for all he cares that don't work with his plan at all, but they're marrying the correct person. And the dictator is true. He could just get him separately to get the correct make the correct political decisions. So according to this a priori reasoning, God would prefer like dictatorships over pure democracies. So, and okay, we think about that. What kinds of political views have been the most common throughout history? Well, or like the political structures. Well, we have lots and lots of like monarchies, oligarchies, totalitarian regimes. All of these strung out throughout history. So our a priori reasoning about Molinism manifests itself in the actual world throughout history. Okay, now what are some objections to this? I'm gonna just jump into some of those. One, you might be able to beat me in your history knowledge and try and like argue that actually democratic principles are more popular than that. To clarify, this argument isn't that all civilizations would be kind of like more oligarchies. It's that oligarchies would be much more common than democracies. Okay, and that's what we see. So another thing you could give, I think the most devastating objection to, there are two really devastating objections, I think. Or two, well, not devastating. There are two strong objections. One is that this argument assumes Molinism, which is a very controversial view of God's foreknowledge. So like all the problems with Molinism are going to transfer to problems with this argument. I'm pretty convinced of Molinism, so that doesn't affect me as much. What affects me much more, or like my position, is that competing alternatives, like alternative worldviews like naturalism, should be able to just as easily give kinds of accounts for these political structures. Like maybe an evolutionary biologist could say why like dominance hierarchies or blah, 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 blah lead to the existence of these political structures more often.